Hello, Pat here from Protospace. Just wanted to give you a rundown on the new LongMill CNC that was just brought in. I'll give you some specific information, but this is just an overview, not a training session at all. CNC brand, Sienci LongMill 12 by 12, and it's a smaller version of the options that are available. So the cutting area essentially is 250 millimeters on the x-axis, about 10 inches, 340 millimeters on the y-axis, about 13 inches, and it has about a 100 millimeter throw on the z-axis, which is about 4 inches. And I've got the router lowered to the bottom of the gantry, so the maximum thickness of this has no spoil board mounted. The idea is to mount a spoil board to this in addition to what's here, so that you have control over the mounting system and also spoilage. The system is turned on. I'll just move the camera to show you this. To turn the power on the system, everything is plugged into a single power bar, which is tied in to the lights in the shelving system here, and there are 3 switches to get this up and running. The unit is controlled by a CNC longboard that has its own power switch on it, which is right where I put my finger here. I'll get some pictures of that later. There's also a Raspberry Pi, which has its own power adapter, and here's a switch to it, and so that can be shut off, although normally it's on all the time. If the power bar is turned on, then this powers up. Your choice if you want to power the longboard up. It can be shut off so that you're safe. You've got the mill turned off and everything. And at the moment, there is no power switch per se for the router. So as you can see here, there's a power switch on the router, and it's a direct feed. I'm going to add relay and a switch so that we have software control over the router, but for the moment, to actually route, you would just hit the switch here, which isn't very safe. We have a few things we'd like to add to this. One is a e-stop, which you don't have. This unit also does not have travel limit switches, so you basically register your work yourself manually, and then we go from there. On the Raspberry Pi, we've got a keyboard and mouse connected. What I've got loaded here is 3 different programs, and it's your choice which one to run, but the controller, the LongMill longboard, runs G-code with an Arduino, pretty standard for the hobby desktop level CNC machines, so that's what's on there. And then your choice of what software you want to control. The 3 programs I put on here are Universal G-Code Sender Platform, which I think is documented most often when you're stumbling around for YouTube University. I also put BCNC on here, which is a program I prefer. It's a Python program, runs the fastest of the 3 that are on here. And the 3rd one that I've put on here as well is the software from CNC, the company that makes the kit and distributes. It's called G-Sender, and their documentation will reference that. So your choice to use one of the 3. That's basically how you fire up the mill. You turn on those power switches, you get to this screen, and then I'm going to show you now just doing some basic movement of the gantry and how to get started. I'm not, as I say, this is not a course, it's just an overview. So I will move the camera to get a better view of the CNC, and then we'll give you the screen stuff as well. Here's a better view of the bed of the CNC, so I can show you a couple things. It's the rails are mounted on a MDF board, and our intention is that this is not to be used as a sacrificial board, but rather as a mounting board. And if this ever gets damaged and replacing it, it's very important that it be aligned and leveled correctly. So presumably that's not going to be needed, but we'll see. This mounting board has threaded inserts that have a 20 centimeter spacing. We could add more, putting them at 10 centimeter spacing, so that you can mount your own sacrificial board on here, which has your own mounting system and so on. I'm going to mount a mounting board that I have and show you how that works, and then I'll run through some of the motions. So here's a mounting board that I have a piece of material attached to that I can just mount for demonstration purposes. And what I've done is these are 10 24 screws. They're common thread, not a metric, but common from the hardware store. Okay, I've mounted my sacrificial board, my mounting board, with a piece of wood. The only other thing that needs to be done if you're going to do any cutting is we have a shop vac next to the mill, and you could either just hold the hose and follow your work if it's a small amount of work, but in addition to that there is a pretty sophisticated dust boot for this, and I haven't used it. I'm thinking that we wouldn't use this until we get comfortable with it, but for training purposes obviously we want this off. But this boot, it mounts on these rails on the side, and it's a little tricky to get in, but that's an item that came with the mill as well. Basically I fire up the program and I can move the gantry with either the mouse buttons or from the screen. So the mouse buttons, there's moving the y-axis, x-axis, and the z-axis. The CNC also comes with a touch plate for determining the height and also the corner of your work. So to show you how this works, you could either use this just to touch the depth alone, or if you have access to the corner of your work, the reverse of this, you can see that it's got the indents. You put this on the corner of your work and you can do the X and the Y touch points, and that is all controlled from the software. But that'll give you very accurate positioning of your bit, and this is just an electrical contact. There's the touch of the magnet. When it makes an electrical contact, it shuts off.